right, so we've been jumping all around here, but that's cool. I want to know the first time me and you ever met, because I didn't. I asked him, but I'm going to ask you.
I believe we were racing trucks at Fontana in 1997, and that was the Goodwrench truck, and Jay Sauter drove. We got him Todd Barrier, who the go-between was how I met you. It was through Todd. I was having carburetor issues, constant.
But
issues.
I'd actually met you a couple times before. I knew of you because you were the tuner on that deal.
Okay.
And it was one of them short tracks, and you were. I think your grandmother was visiting at the time. But the first time you remember me was Fontana.
Before we ever really knew each other.
Officially.
I was struggling with an issue that I'd never seen before, and Todd says, "Hey, go talk to this guy named Timmy." And so I went over to your trailer, and of course it was you. And
I singing?
I can't remember if you were singing, but I do remember telling you my problem. You said, "I know exactly what the problem is," and you kind of helped me fix it. And that's kind of how you and I started.
They had something going on with their fuel, didn't they?
It was a sinking float in the carburetor.
Yeah.
And we used to run brass floats years ago in the carburetors, and this had a pinhole in it, but I couldn't figure it out, and you're the one that saved my ass that day.
Well, you've saved my ass a couple times too, so it reciprocates. Right.
Yeah.
All right, so you said you had a Chief story, a story about Dad.
The first time I ever met Chief. So my being kind of around racing, and all my life, my dad had racing posters or different advertisements in the shop, and so my visual representation of Chief was a pretty big bearded, from the 70s, early 80s. That was kind of my image of Chief.
Still kind of getting around good.
Yeah, and that was kind of my image of Chief. And so, of course, I was just as starstruck as anybody when I came out here, because it was kind of like the dream job. So meeting different people was really cool. The guys you've been watching on TV or the posters on the wall.
So the opportunity presents itself to meet the Chief.
Well, what we were...
and you had no idea who it was.
Well, it kind of was funny, because I was changing valve springs before the race on the Goodwrench truck, and I was under the hood working along like we did, and all of a sudden...
It was a mad panic every week. Yeah.
This older gentleman had kind of stood in front of the truck and was kind of leaned on the radiator watching me. And I kind of just looked up and said, kind of smart ass, like, "Can I help you?" And he said, No, I'm just here. He said, "I like watching you young guys work. It makes me feel good." And I said something smart ass like, "Well, who the hell are you?" And he kind of stepped back. He said, "I'm the Chief, Maurice Petty." And I went, "Oh my God."
Felt like this big.
Yeah, and so I come out from under the fender and apologized to him and shook his hand, and ever since that time, every time I run into Chief, he was a really good dude.
He knew you, and you.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure he knew the connection with you, because Terry and him was really good friends.
Yeah.
And Terry stepped in when Dad was having some health issues years ago.
Yeah.
But and there was another guy and tell me about this guy. He was in a wheelchair, and he was from out there, and he was studying some stuff for. I remember him, the way he studied stuff. That was a different perspective on how we did stuff here.
Yeah, that was a guy named Rich Keller, who was auto shop teacher for a continuation school back in Reading, and he had it was kind of an interesting deal. He was a Vietnam veteran that was in a wheelchair, but he had a couple of drag cars that you could a wheelchair-bound person could drive.
Okay.
And so this continuation high school, which I didn't go to, had this auto shop class. And for all the troubled youth that would go through this deal, he let them work on their drag cars. And so he would take them to the races every weekend, and he was one of those type of guys that I looked up to. And
I just remember him when Terry was over here, and he brought that guy in. I guess they were wearing cams out then, and he was looking at, it looks like crocus cloth, I just remember that old Western.
Yeah, guys like him or Chief, or a guy named like Ronnie Revens at B&R. I really, if I could get to know those older guys with the experience and the knowledge they had, I know I did at the track. I'm sure John did. We just used them as much as we could, and kind of glommed onto them, asking them questions.
And they liked it.
Yeah, and they liked it.
Oh, everybody likes to pass out some knowledge, especially to guys that's really doing it, like you said.
I think engine guys are really good about that.
And there's no BS factor.
Yeah, and with all of like Chief's fame and accomplishments and everything that he did, he never had a ego. He was always humble, and he would always help you if you asked.
Yeah. If you were asses and elbows, he was in there trying to help you. And all of them were like, he wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
So, JD's got a Chief story in Timmy. So, one day I'm over here. I'll start it out. I know this is where we're going with this. So JD's
talking about in this shop.
Yes. Yeah. So this is mom and dad were both still living, and so I don't know. JD had a Arden that he was working on. You explain that in a minute. And I think I had a Hemi going on at the same time.
You did.
And something else. There was like 3, pretty cool stuff. And Moonshine Speed Shop was a fledgling entity at the time.
Yeah.
And
I think you just had a regular normal flathead too.
Yeah, I think it was. So I had all this stuff going on. So I said, hold on a minute. Don't go nowhere. I told JD to just
I was
chill.
holding that block. I think I was holding
he was holding the block, and I was doing something. So I was like, I'm going to call my mom. So I called mother, and I said, hey, so what's Daddy doing? Because you always had to ease into it. Because if he was doing something, he wasn't going to answer the phone. Right. You know what I mean? So I was like, hey, if y'all get a second, they had this John Deere Gator. And I said, y'all get on the Gator and ride over. I got some stuff I want him to see. Okay. So I figured it'd be a couple hours. It wasn't long, was it? 10, 15 minutes. Yeah. They come in, and they come pulling up the door. JD's at the garage door where he's holding the block. And I'm like, good, you're here. He said, what? What do you want? And I'm like, well, I was just going to tell you, Dad, I got this. JD's working on an Arden, a flathead. I'm working on a flathead. I got a Hemi. I've seen all this before. Yeah. So I felt like this big, and I looked at Mom and said, why does he always got to do it? So I just went on to the other room. So he gets to talk to JD, and I'll let you finish.
We talked about that Arden for 30 minutes.
He asked him all kinds of questions.
He was way more interested than he let Timmy know that he was. He actually liked it.
Why did you bother me for? I was watching Dallas Cowboys.
He was really happy you called him.
Yeah.
He didn't want you to
But
know.
he didn't want me to know. No. And I wouldn't have called him again for nothing.
No. Kind of like when you ruined the hot dog chili that time.
That's another one.
Another story.
So, here I am knocking stuff over. JD come in one day, and in the winter it gets kind of slow. So I was going to cook hamburgers, and I bought this chili. Well, we had messed up a couple burgers, so I just crumbled the burger up and mixed it in with the chili. So he starts hollering at me, why are you putting that hamburger in that chili? And I looked at him, I'm like, are you serious right now? And he goes, well, yeah. I said, what do you think's in here?
Right.
It's probably worse than this. Right. It was the 2 or 3 day old hamburger meat. But again,
he ate the hell of them hot dogs.
He never let up, did he? But why are you putting spice on that meat? Anyway, yeah. What else we got? We got any more?
Well, you and I still work together.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
For the people watching this, we still work together at ECR.
And it's at least once every 2 or 3 weeks, one of us will say, hey, come over here, man, I want to show you something. Or we're always back. And the same way with you. Yeah. I mean, JD, I got to say this because he was my boss, and Daddy always said, well, you're just sucking up to JD. And I'm not. But JD is one of the best troubleshooters I've ever known. And I feel like you and I are pretty good, too. I'm not belittling anything, but if you give somebody, sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees, so to speak. Right. In other words, you can't analyze it until you talk to one of your buddies. Yeah. Well, you two are my buddies, and you're who I call.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're my lean-on guys.
I think good engine builders do that.
Because, and so, you knew better than that. Well, and then you really feel bad, like, I knew those were too long. But you know what I mean?
You already know what's wrong. You're just waiting for somebody to
verify.
To verify that you're not stupid.
And you are.
Right. This job will make you feel stupid.
Yeah. You already know what the problem was.
So, JD, tell us a little something about you left ECR.
Yeah.
And you started.
I left ECR, went back to Colorado, and donated this table when I moved back.
Oh yeah, this is actually JD Dennis's table, and we've been using it as a set. But go ahead.
Yeah.
From Petty Brothers.
Moved back to Colorado. That's where I'm from. Family. My wife's family's from there. Just time to go back and try something different. So now I'm back out here visiting you.
Well, tell us what you did when you went back to Colorado.
I bought a little hot rod shop. It was already in business. Had been there for about 20 years. restoration, hot rod shop deal. We had that for about 4 years and just wasn't really what I wanted to do. So we sold it. So right now I'm unemployed.
I like the way you say that.
We did good enough on selling it that I'm not really worried about it right now.
No, I'm not worried about that right now.
At some point I will have to.
You just Fred Wanky. You know that, don't you? I'm not worried about that right now,
It's not
Timmy.
time to go faster.
Collecting information.
We're gathering.
Gathering information.
Yeah.
Joe London will get a kick out of that when he watches it.
So I'm actually out here to visit my friends, and
So you're going to come by and get your old job back at J.C. Petty Monday?
maybe.
Whirly.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I still stay in touch with you guys and a lot of my friends, and obviously me and Ron still do the Bonneville thing, so we still go. If it doesn't rain.
I got to get you a picture of the car in here.
You do?
It's
Yeah.
With the sticker coming
With the
off?
sticker flapping in the breeze.
I have that. I can probably frame that.
Yeah.
For you
Well, guys, I want to tell you, it's an honor for you to be here on the show.
Appreciate
Hope
you
this
having me.
works out.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It was fun.
We'll continue on and party on, Wayne. Party on, Garth.